Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've been getting a lot of requests. We're doing our brush ups and everything like I said we're going to do. I'm going to go off just a little bit and paint something because I get a lot of requests for metals, and they're really interesting to paint. I've been painting them for almost 40 years, and they're really fun, some of the different color progressions that you use. So we're going to paint this particular brass. I'm going to put some of these Coral Peonies probably inside of it here. That's the plan. And then we'll maybe add a few more little things. I have some tree peonies up there that are really pretty, those pink ones up there. I'm thinking, well, we might work something like that in there. We'll get going. But what I've done here now, this is a 14 inches by 18 board, and it's one of my panels that I use. And you could use MDF, you could use tempered masonite. This is a particular 7-layer oak ply, which I like because it's very stable. Gave it a coat of white and then just sanded it down. Then I kind of sketched on an idea of what I'm going to do for the brass pot and the peonies, and we'll get going. For my colors and stuff that I have down here, like this is my normal standard palette, the Hansa yellow, Darya light yellow, yellow oxide, burnt sienna, naphtha red light, pine green. This is a color that I use out on some landscapes and stuff. I'm going to use it today to help make these gray colors. It is sapphire blue. This is phthalo blue. The cool colors here are the red violet, the quinacridone violet. This is another color. It is the beige. It is what's called medium beige, and it is a beautiful color, especially to help you make some gold, some of your gray colors. I have some titanium white. This is the Deravan Open Medium that we've been doing with a lot of the Alla Prima lessons. And then I have the Extender Medium out here. And I'm going to use both in the painting today, and I'll explain to you as we go what we're going to do. All right? All right, let's get into this. So I'm going to start, so I don't like working the metal stuff really onto a white. So what I'm going to do with my painting knife here, I'm going to take some blue and some medium beige. About 1 to 1 here. It makes a nice gray, and you look at it. The blue will help cool it. And a good cooler color will make the brass really shine, and that's a pretty color to go with the brass there. Now I don't want to use it, completely opaque yet. So what I'm going to do is take it. This is a tile setter sponge. I do this a lot when I pre-glaze landscapes or I put an undertoning color on. I'm just going to take some water because I want this to dry fairly quickly. Take some water onto the sponge here and kind of work it into this color right into the sponge. And then I'm just going to glaze this right over the whole thing here, over the whole painting here. And I'll let some water streaks and everything. This is just to put an undertone, and it's going to give me a good idea for working my background and stuff. Now, I could smooth that all out, and I don't always do that. I don't always like to do that. Sometimes I'll take a paper towel, go there. But this starts my first effect of, you just kind of let all that brushwork and stuff go. So many of you write to me, how do you get more casual? One of the ways to get more casual is start right from the very beginning and apply everything pretty casual. And this is the other thing I love about painting glass. So I can just take a little bit of my paper towel, clean that up. Now we know that's about 1 to 1, even though we'll probably never make that exact color again. That's somewhere that we want to use. Now, as I look into the peonies, this is the one thing. Now, a lot of times artists work from setups. And some of you write to me, why don't you do a setup? Well, I don't always do a setup. I used to always do a setup. I did setups for years, and they're a great way to study light. But I've done them for so many times, I find a real nice harmony. I know what's going to look like into a painting, so I can create a nice harmony of light, and I'll teach you about light moving through this painting here. And so I just need some objects to get some ideas, and you know me, I like to change. So when we look at the light up here, this particular light source is coming just left of center on here. The peonies is back up over here to the right. So I'm going to be able to use these peonies for some color ideas, some petaling ideas and stuff. I'm going to have to change the position of the light moving through the peonies. to go consistently with this. And that's just something that we do as artists. You can't always, a lot of artists do setups, and setups are fine, but you can't always do setups. You can't always find great peonies and stuff this time of the year. Now it's November here out in the middle of Nebraska, and there's no peonies anywhere, not even at the florist. So learning to work from work from photos like this is a great way. So what I'm going to do is, I love some of these colors that are into that peony back there, and that's going to key off of some of your blues and greens and some of your burnt siennas and stuff. And I'm going to let's just take this. Let's just go with some of our sapphire again and some of our burnt sienna right in here. Maybe even a touch of our phthalo blue. Now, touch, because this thing is so powerful here. You can see that. See, that's a beautiful, as that gets down, as that blue mixes up in there, and maybe not quite as blue as I see behind the peonies, but that's this beautiful toned color that's going to go, and it's going to work really well inside our brass. So if we take some of this color here and push it into our background, we would create a harmony between our background and our brass. And that's something that, especially with the metals, when you're painting that, you want some of that harmony to get in there. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use a paper towel for this to start out, because I want this really casual. I'm going to take some extender, so it's going to slow the drying time down just a bit, and my paper towel. And I'm going to come in here and just scrub this around through some of this area. Now, all this will change. But one of the things that this does, and a lot of people always ask me, is, why do you do stuff like this? One of the things it does is just kind of loosens me up as an artist and gets me a lot more casual. And so I want some of that dark. Now, light's going to come in here for the front, okay? So those of you who've painted couchoir with me, he's on the channel and stuff, light is going to come right down through here. Okay, this is basically the light hit right here on this is the ellipse of the container here. Light's going to hit right in there. Sometimes I can just even back it out and say, okay, that's where that light is really going to hit. It's going to track vertically through it, but it's going to hit there. And some of you that paint couchoir and stuff with me, I love to study the light, and I love to use the French Impressionist, and couchoir is one of my favorites, to help me, pick stuff out. And in doing so, what he would do is put it through here, and then you put a through light right back up there. So we might do a little bit of that, and which means we'll have it a little bit lighter there. And if we're doing through light, what's called through light, it'll be a bit darker back up over here. So we'll keep it dark right around where those peonies are, because we're going to have what's called the bouquet shadow, the shadow from the bouquet itself. And then we'll let the dark creep up here, and just use this. See, it makes a nice mottled background. We'll go in and soften and move color around and do that art thing all over everywhere. But this will just give us it's a real light and dark. And I know it kind of looks like, do you know what you're doing, Dave, right now? Don't worry about that. Get light, get casual. So we have a little bit of light up here. Get casual, let this in. As we paint, a lot of that movement's going to soften down. But that movement, it adds so much interest to your composition, and that's what we want to have, okay? All right, so let's come in here. Let's just we could use water or extender. This is my 1-inch fusion brush, my favorite painting brush. It used to be the 3/4 inch brush, and over this past year I've been using this 1-inch everywhere, and I love it. I'm going to take my little square. This is what I just took a yardstick from the Home Depot, cut it, and screwed the ends on here together. I use it in landscapes. I use it, just about everywhere. And I'm going to use this just to put on, whether or not I keep it completely, a table line, or soften it out. That's going to help me right away, to get a table line there. Now, we can take some of this and work some of this back right up by that table line. And, we're going to do this art thing all over everything. We're going to paint everything here, so you don't have to worry about it too much. But just move that around. All this is going to change. This starts to loosen you up. Now, the other thing, you might want to drop some in here now is when you have a light, you're going to have a cast shadow. You can see on that brass one a little bit more of a cast shadow. And so a cast shadow is going to come here. If it's this, it's going to come exactly back behind this. And I'm just going to lightly blush it in. This is not really going to stay too much here. I mean, I'm going to change it and manipulate it quite a bit. But it just kind of shows me, you know, painting, when you're painting something, especially if you're creating it from multiple things, it's a journey. It's a journey of creation. You're not only you don't have a setup that you're copying, you're creating. And so what you do is you put on certain things to help you see it a little bit more. So this is not going to stay, perfectly like that. I'm going to change it, obviously, throughout the painting. We'll put light source in and stuff. But it just helps me see a little bit more about where the painting's going to go. And so likewise, what I could do, I like this kind of a grayed, front table on this one here. Let's use a little extender. Let's add some white to this, okay? And this, it's a soft gray. But that one's just a touch bluer there, and I don't want to get it too cold, so I might take it towards, really, sounds kind of crazy, but towards a green, a neutralized green, which is a little bit of yellow in there too. Now you can see that starts to warm this up here quite a bit. So, and that's a pretty color, just about what we have, just a little grayer, softer right in there. And we can just walk some of that through. Now, why am I doing this? This is going to allow me to set the front, as I put some of this on, this will allow me to set the front light source. And, I'm an artist. I paint light. I've studied and studied light, how light moves through things. And that's what we are. We're artists of light. And so you need to get to some of these things to help you see the light movement through your painting right away. So I'm going to lighten this up. As I lighten it up, I like to warm it up. So I'm going to add just a touch more of the yellow oxide to that. And I'm just going to push a little light right into there and walk it across a little bit. Let's go a little bit more. So value-wise, what I'm doing is I'm coming right up in here towards my 8 to a 9, maybe even a 9. It will dry one value down. So that will keep in mind. It'll dry just a little bit down. Now we're going to do, this is really going to change. So, but this right now allows me to see where my light is going to be into the painting. And if you need to, off of your drawing, you can back anything down. But I'm always a thing of, if you drew it once, you can draw it again. But now you can see the light come through and go back up to that particular area. Now, what I do a lot, if I'm painting for a lot of harmony, is I'll drop right back down here, a little bit darker here, maybe a touch more blue into it here, because blue is slightly cooler, we're away from the light, and I'll push some of that right back into our back right here like this. Now, and I'll let this kind of model, I don't want to take it out of the center there too much, but I'll let that go through there. So what we have right here right now is what we call through light going through the painting there, and that's what happened. And the Dutch, back into the 17th century, started a whole thing, and then it went over to Italy and everything. But they eventually called it by the Italian term chiaroscuro, which is the light to dark of the painting. And a lot of the Dutch, Balthasar van der Ast, one of the first ones, to take his composition away from the wall a little bit, shining a light this way through it so that you get a through light. So basically the shadow side of the composition is against, or excuse me, the light side of the composition, which would be here, is against the dark of the background, and the shadow side of the composition, which would be here, is against the light. We'll talk more about that. I know that's a little bit confusing, but it is a fantastic theory of painting, and they did it so well for hundreds of years, and I just so love it. Now I'm just going to lighten the pressure, just kind of let this kind of skip around. This is all going to change, but I'm just carrying and harmonizing the color a little bit for the painting. So, because I want everything, as you start to paint your metals, whenever you're painting a metal, you've got to have a little bit of the surrounding areas, ideas of the color. They don't have to be perfectly set, but you have to have an idea of the color. Now, why? Because brass and metals and shiny metals, they reflect the colors around it. You really see, like this one up here with this pot, okay? This reflecting all the colors around here. You see the green from the table right up in here. At anything that is down below the light, or down below the ellipse of it right here, it's gonna shine back up there. It's a reflection basically of the colors of what's around it. So basically here you can see some of this color right in here onto the brass. So a brass, now this is an antique brass, that one's a little shinier brass. You can even, if you look real closely, see the person reflected in there that took the photo. So, but the main point is here you see green from these plants into the side of it here. So you having some of your background in with an idea is going to help you paint the brass, because brass is going to reflect a lot of the colors of everything around the composition. So everything that I start to do in here is going to reflect up into the brass. And my table colors, everything I'm doing here is going to reflect right up into that side of the brass. So I try to get some of the stuff set around the painting where I'm going to do something, so then I can, take those colors and put it into the brass. Now, before we get going too much onto the brass, let's go ahead and assign our coral peonies here. We have that beautiful red and green kind of color that's right in there, some yellow, and I'm going to drop down to my 3/4 inch brush here and just make some of those colors that I'm going to see in here. Not mix them up real well. We'll put some of the burnt sienna out over here. And that I'm going to leave a little space here, negative space, that I can develop some leaves and stuff, and drop that other one right over there. So I'm going to push this right in here, and that's a perfect background color for this. See how it just kind of sinks right in. You can still see some stuff there, but it kind of sinks in a little bit. That's what I wanted. A little lighter pink or so in there, some of those colors, and maybe some of those nice yellows in there as well. So we'll model up that center. We've got lots to do, but we have lots of time today. So then we'll take some of these colors, some of the reds and some of the greens, will come right back down over here. We'll push that other one, that pinky one, right down in here. Okay, and let's, just so you can see it easier, so you know I haven't lost my mind here, we'll take some yellows, some pink colors here, and maybe a little burnt sienna with that. Let's just pop some of that, just a quick idea. This is just a quick idea of the backside of that red into that one. I'm going to take for harmony, I'll take a bit of that red and drop it right into this one here. But the backside, and really that backside of that peony would look really pretty if we come back up here towards these grays, back up in here. A little bit of our blue or sapphire blue and touch of our burnt sienna. Beautiful grays here, and maybe a bit more of the medium base, so it's not quite so cold, but that'll pull some of those colors right back up here. We'll put those into the back of the peony here. We'll kind of rotate that one around like that, so that'll go out okay like that. We'll have some more fun light ones, and then we'll put a bit more of our pinks and some other colors in here. Right now what I'm doing, see, is it's basically blocking in, giving some colors for my eye to see here, and I'm not painting it specifically or by any matter of means here. Okay, so into the front, now we're going to want to lighten up, so I'll lighten up. When I lighten up, I warm up, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to this, a little bit of that nice warm yellow oxide. And we'll just set some of the light here for where that's going to go in that peony. So you'll see the light, and we'll want that light to kind of move back and through. Now, these aren't the petals yet. This is just real casual painting that I'm just, so I can start to see the peony. So when I sit back and I look at it, I start to see the peony. Now, nothing's done, but you're starting to get an idea of the painting and your vision. You know, I always say this is like in developing a painting, it's like looking through the lens of a camera and you bring it into focus. You know, and so that's what I'm doing is I have nothing in focus here, but I'll start bringing it into focus here. Let's take a little more red, maybe a touch of this quinacridone to keep it not quite so warm, but a little bit warm. And don't model it, maybe a bit of yellow too. Don't model it. Model means this. See all the different colors that you have in here. So I don't want to touch it too much. It'll become one color. So I want to, when I touch this, I get some different colors coming out. That's what makes them pretty. See? You get some different colors and stuff. So with my same brush stroke, I get this color out and this color out and this color out. That's what makes it pretty. So the palette, when you're painting on the palette, let's put a bit of that in here. Isn't that kind of neat right in there like that? Okay. The palette is a dangerous thing to hang around too long because it'll make all your colors one. Okay, so we want to be a little careful with how much we hang around that palette. Okay, now I don't have to really rinse it out. Just going to take a little bit of extra of that color out. Now I'm going to, and I know this sounds weird, but I'm just going to drop some of that color right down in there because we're painting metal. And up here in the tops of the metal, you know, we might put some of the reflections of some of those other peony colors down. When you're looking at a metal like this, now, you know, I studied from a master in still life painting back into the late 70s and early 80s when I was very young. I studied, and his name was Olaf Oakland, and he painted metal like I'd never seen before and was great. And we'd paint these coppers, and we'd start copper colors out with purples first, you know, and it was fantastic. Brass, depending upon, you know, I have a lot of other paintings with brass and a very popular one called brass, roses in brass. I did roses in a bright brass. But when you look at it, into here, you start to look at through colors that are underneath. And of course, it's going to change for the light. Like here, the underneath tone of this one is obviously a green. You can kind of see that green. And here, it's quite a bit different. It's here more of a bluish umber that is here that's picking up some of the background and stuff here. And so I'm going to start not with a bright, not with a mid-tone, not with the deepest shadow tone. I'm going to look for a color, and it is slightly greenish right in there, blue-greenish right in there. That's where I'm going to take that tone. And so I'm going to grab some of these yellows and a bit of my burnt sienna here and a bit of my blue, which will give me a bit of the kind of a yellowish green, dirty kind of color here that I'll look, and you'll see when we unmodel that, mix that just a bit more here, and you'll see it's kind of that undercut color right up underneath there, which is kind of a good color. You need to have some of these these dirty earth tones to make the metal shine that we're going to be putting it in. So we'll start out with that. So it's a color that we're picking out from here. It's right up in there. It's a mid-tone or undertone of it. Now you can add a little open medium here if you want to. You can paint this alla prima. I generally paint a lot of metals pure acrylic, letting the layers dry. But if you want to paint this alla prima, or if you're using oils, you can use these same techniques with the oils, and you can just leave it dry. This first coat that you would put on, you put a little open medium, or you can put a little bit of extender in here. If you were working with oils and stuff, you would want this a little thin. Okay, so we can paint into it and it doesn't have too much power. But see, I like that little reds and stuff come out there. So we'll block this in here first, like this. And generally, you know, if you're working like an alla prima or a premier coup technique, what you would do is work the shadows and then up into the lights. But with the acrylics lately, I've been doing, in the last few years, I've been doing the lights down into the dark. So you'll see me go back and forth. And so today, as an artist, when I paint solely in acrylics, but I'll use some different color progressions and stuff than when I used to paint for so many years in oils. And so I'm going to leave that. And see that light, I'm just going to leave that right now. It's just from glazing that a little bit lighter. And I think maybe I'll put that peony up over the edge of that handle there. And I'll push this handle. I drew the handle so it's a little bit further back. Here you see more of the side of it. I'm going to draw it so it's actually turned the picture just a bit here. So this ellipse should come up a bit so you see a little bit of the descending size down the other side. Now, that was a great brush for that, but that's going to be a little too big for us to continue on with that. So I follow a lot, those of you who follow a lot, and thank you so much for all your comments and stuff. I really appreciate that. That really helps our video. So, I hope all of you would just take a minute and just drop a comment on there, because that just, helps our videos, the distribution of our videos. But I always follow Sargent, which means that I try to, one of his 10 principles of painting was that you use as large a brush as possible at any one time. So I'm going to come in here and start to put in some of these beautiful tones, and I don't want to mix them up real well. I'm going to take my scraper here, and this is just good stuff that has too much paint on it to really scrape anymore. Let's try the back up here and just scrape that up here for a second. It's one of the reasons I don't want to lose it. That's good color. So, but I'm going to take some burnt sienna over here. I'm going to take some blue. These will make beautiful tones. Maybe a bit of the red, sometimes a bit of the yellows. See, these are all beautiful, deeper, richer brass tones right in here, see? And if you want it more antique, you head more to your blue right in here. But let's pick out, there's a nice, beautiful shadow that's going to come right over there. We'll work this in. I'm going to add a little open medium here. The open medium is thicker. That's why I use it. The extender is thinner. So I'm coming in here to the shadows. Now, I know in landscapes and everything, I always tell you guys, shadows are thin and the highlights and stuff are thicker, but I find when I come paint the metals, I need the shadows to have a little bit of power to really make the metal shine. So I'll give it a little more power. And I'm just going to and see how I use my brush and all kinds of, so I get this is what I call the modeling of it. And so as I apply some of these colors, and I'm going to constantly mix here and do different things so the color comes out a little different here. I'm going to use my brush in many different ways. It gets kind of like that hammered feeling to the brass here. That's what it's going to do. Okay, let's go down. Let's drop a bit of that shadow down here onto the foot, right down there. These are so fun. And this is really where you need that long handle brush. You step way back onto the long handle brush here, which keeps the tip of the brush very soft, which allows you to really manipulate it and get a lot of what we call brush calligraphy into the brass here, which is what we're going to want to have. And you're going to want to have enough paint. See where I hit like this or I dig like that? You see that coming up there. And that's the brush mark. And, there are some artists, especially the old, French painters, that would leave those brush marks like that. But they can be a little bit distracting. So that's why stepping back on your brush keeps the tip lighter and you don't get as much. Especially with the fusion brushes here, because they're made for doing really soft techniques. They were originally invented for watercolor. Okay, so I got a bit of that. Let's put some of this up around at the top of our ellipse of our brass right up here. Just a bit of that, a little bit darker here. So, and don't fight the paint. If you need more paint, get more paint. Little things when you're painting metals can get frustrating really fast, and you shouldn't fight it. So get some paint back down in there. And you can pull this down like this. I use my hands a lot. That's why I love to use non-toxic acrylics like this, because I paint with my hands a lot. And, you know, you can get some beautiful tones. So there's a bit of that. Now, see that beautiful reddish orange burnt sienna kind of tone over there? Let's go over and head towards that just a bit. Get that. Burnt sienna and darulite is also really pretty. Look at that kind of tone, and it's really kind of that color that's right in there. Let's drop a bit of that in. Just spot it. This is where I'll come through and spot some of those colors through here. Now the ellipse, you can see where that ellipse is, and you can see almost like a color change right down in there as it's heading to the shadow on the round part right in here. It's heading up above is really the shadow, and it's getting a lot of reflected light, which is light coming, hitting the table, bouncing back up that way. So it's going to be quite light, really, on the low side of the container here of this brass. Let's put a little bit of that color in, model that in, so it starts to go a little closer to it. Okay, and we can still deepen and cool, but sometimes I'll take this, okay, let's slide a little more burnt sienna in it. And let's just take a little mark of that right down in there. Maybe a bit of it across. A different kind of brush mark and stuff that you had from before. Now you can see we're starting to build this. Now we're going to start into some lights as well. And step back. Now, those of you who paint with me all the time, that's camera one. You know that one. That one is at 8 feet. That's what I really like to look at. And so I have a monitor right here that's looking at that. So when you see me looking right here, I'm looking. It's just like me getting up and getting back. And I can see what you're seeing, and I can see what it looks like right there at 8 feet. So that one right there is 3 feet. That one right there is 8 feet. That's what we paint everything here for the gallery, for everything that we do, that it has to have a certain amount of interest at 8 feet. And so that's what we like to have to our painting. So, but now as we add the lights, as you start to go whites into any of your yellows, something like that, they're going to go opaque real fast. So we want to either add some open medium to help transparent it up, or we want to be very careful and sneak up on it. Now darulite is a semi-transparent. Beautiful color. It's not as opaque. The white will help make it opaque. Yellow oxide is very opaque of a color. But let's sneak up on this a bit. So the yellows that we're going to use here in the brass. Now this brass up here, you can see, would use the yellows right up there at the top. But here's a little bit more antique. It's a little bit more orange. So we're going to really kind of take the color down a bit with some blue. Right in here, our blue burnt sienna here, which helps it with the more of a, orangey kind of green color here. And we'll start right around, this is right where that light is going to be. I'm just going to manipulate a bit of this light down here. It's, I'm going to build this, and then I'm going to go work on the peonies a bit, and then I'm going to come back and build this again. I don't believe in building the brass all the way one time through. But you can see the undertone. So this is basically, I'd call this the underpainting of the brass. And now I'm starting to add a bit of the light, and you can see that this light is starting up here into this one here. So it's up there. So it's value-wise here. Let me just help you out here. Value-wise, I'm down here towards the 405. So I want to keep that. We'll put in some movement, some brush movements and stuff. I look for like modeled movements of, where some of those color tones are, and the calligraphy more than anything else. Now down here, let's go more yellow. Let's build that up again. Let's even add a little bit of our blue from our background, which is from that table, right? That's going to make it go just a bit greenish, a little light. Maybe a bit of our medium beige right down here, which is going to help pick up some of that table color. Which, if you look at that, see, that's the color that's coming right in there. It's reflecting off of the table. But rather than copy that photo, I have to copy the colors that are on my table, because that table and mine are just a little different. But we'll pop some of that in on the low side right down there. maybe just a bit of it that's going to be on that shine area there. Let's go a bit more. Haven't gone into the brightness of the brass yet, but we'll go a bit more to the yellows here. We'll work a bit more of that tone around there like that. And see, now what I start to do is I'm going to just pinch wipe my extra color out. I'm going to push in a little bit of all of this into my brush unevenly here, and step way back and use the soft end of the brush here to just manipulate that edge, pulling some colors through. So I start to build this movement here into the brass. That's what you want to do. So you don't want to paint too long. You want to keep the tip of your brush very soft, and you just want to whisper, just like I always say, it's like butterfly wings, just touch it. Whisper over it here as you start to add some of this. Let's add a bit of that. Even though it's a tone that's not everywhere on the above the ellipse, but it's a tone. We can just add in a bit of it here. It's a pretty tone. Let's get a bit more yellow, white. Let's grab some of this. Just model that up a bit. That's going to be kind of a pretty tone right in there. Let's just drop that in here. That's what's going to go up that side, down, right down in there. Now I've put that on, and you can see if you look close, it's a little bit warmer than what's happening down here, just a little bit. That's what makes the metal so pretty, is when you can get those different tones, the warm and cools. Let's go over to the edge here. Let's not fight that, Dave. Let's get some paint. Let's go over to the edge here. Let's grab just a bit of green too. Green is beautiful to add into brass. And just manipulate that edge lightly, lightly, lightly. Just don't use strokes. Use crossing into it to manipulate that tone. That gives the more hammered effect to the metal there, see? Okay? And so when you're looking at all of that, the last thing you want to do is come down there and go, just go like that. That's not how this brass is painted. This brass is painted by little motions of the brush here, okay? All right, and see, isn't that a nice tone that's working with that? This can be a lot darker in there, which will help that brass shine, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Now let's go back, maybe a little more burnt sienna, and yellow. I love that Darulite with that. That's such a pretty color, and such a pretty brass color, and it's going to build it up right in there. Here, so changing, working your colors, constantly changing. And I don't want to get rid of all that dark there, but that's a beautiful tone right in there into that center part right in there. And you see it has a little bit of a glow to it. That's the Darulite yellow. That Darulite yellow is so pretty in painting the metals. I use it in metals all the time here. So that's going to come up there. There's going to be a bit of that right up here. That's going to be pretty, where you see some of that come down. I'll take out all my dark. Little touches of it though. Little touches of it that's going to make it pretty here. And maybe a little bit by the edge. And then manipulate that edge. A little bit more burnt sienna. Hit right across there. Let those two colors kind of not mix. Just what I call model together. They just overriding each other and creating the depth of the brush. And at some point we get to take that blue and burnt sienna here, pretty, maybe a bit of our red and green as well, pretty tones, slightly different, and rework some of that shadow. Now that's just a touch cool, so maybe a bit more. And let's add some open medium to this, or a little extender. Extender's going to thin it out. And usually I like to thin my shadows out a bit because they can take out real easy. So I take away the power really with a little open medium, and best is that extender. So they don't have as much power to take out my light, but I can add them in, little movements of them back in, little touches, little bits and marks of them where I would see some here to get some of that back in there, okay? And let's reset some right back down in here. A little bit right down in there. Now, as I get to a smaller brush, I'll refine all of this. Okay, I'll refine it a little bit more, but that's good enough for right now, just to get some of that. Now, most of that's a beautiful tone that can basically paint here onto the handle. Here. Go. It's kind of pretty in there. Maybe a bit where I lost it back up here on the top opening of it. Okay, there. All right. So that's down. Now, if you're, if you look at evaluate here, my paints that I'm putting that on, it's not real super thick onto the surface. So now when you're painting the metals, guys, it is very important that you evaluate how much paint you have on the surface. Okay, if you've got too much paint on the surface, especially acrylic painter, everything you do, everything you touch, like if I come in and touch a light color in there, and if I touch it 2 or 3 times, it disappears, that means you have too much paint onto the surface. What you need to do is let your acrylics tighten up a little bit so that when you can put the next color on, it doesn't have that much impact onto it, okay? And right now, I don't have too much, so that's good. I've painted a lot of metals. I know with the metals, I approach it kind of slowly so I can keep painting it. But if it is affecting, in other words, I put the lights on, that we're going to put some of this light on right now, and it starts to disappear, go up and work on your peonies a little bit, okay? Put some colors up into them, jump forward in the video, go to your peonies, work on them for about 10-15 minutes, let this tighten up, and you'll have an easier time painting. Now, I'm going to do some of that before I go into the final of the brass too. Let some of it really tighten up so I have a lot of control. But I'm going to take some of this color, some of my yellows here, a little bit of that darulide, a little bit of the light here. I'm going to add some open medium to this. It's going to come close but not perfect here. And I'm going to start working some lighter colors here. Right down into this, model through, drag over. See, I leave that little calligraphy there. Start leaving some of the calligraphy, the brush marks, and light little touches and moving here of this. Here, you can have that light and then the light pull across here in different ways. That's just going to create the different shimmers across the metal that you're going to build here. We're going to build it. Here, let's take some more paint, some more darulide, some more white. We'll build this up a bit more, maybe just a touch of these colors here to tone that down a bit. We'll push that in. Now, see, that's a lot of paint right there, so I'm just going to manipulate it up the side for that light that's going to go there. And I'm going to pinch wipe some of that out of my brush, and immediately, instead of working back in here, I'm going to come right back down in here, maybe just right about here, a little half tone darker, just a bit darker, and I'm going to manipulate that edge, light pressure, just push back and forth on that edge there just a bit to take that away. Leave a bit of that calligraphy, that movement there. The calligraphy is the brush movement here. And just tap along that edge there, like that. Right into here, I might just pick up a bit of this shadow so I don't lose it and paint back into that. Leave a bit of that shiny kind of metal and stuff happening right in there. And let's come right down in here, put a bit of that over there. We'll hit just a bit more to the burnt sienna. Right across over there, right in there like that. See that color? But I'm stopping right about this ellipse here, and then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add a touch of that blue, touch of that beige over here into some of this. This is going to change the color up just a bit, soften it, cool it actually, just a touch. And I'm going to reset some of that color right down in here. Right up towards that apex of that. So you can see there are two different colors. One is coming from basically the light source. One is coming as a reflected light off of the table right down here. Let's clean up my ellipse here, my rounding part of this. That nice reflected light right in there. Now, before I go too far, see, I love this kind of stuff. That's the breaking of the edge, the fracturing of the edge. So I'll take some of my burnt sienna, some of my yellow. Let's get some open medium in here, a bit of the blue, right into my brush here. And just use different edges of it here just to kind of break that so I get that modelly look right there to the metal. And there's some right over here. So I'll hold the brush more flat, drag it through a bit. I don't use the tip, I use the sides and stuff, which gives you more of a nice, beautiful mottled to the brass, see? And let's take a strike or two of that color right up here above it, just a bit. Right up there by our light. You can hammer the edges. This is what I call it. This is hammered brass. Just work the color, just tip of the brush, also known as stabbing it, stab art. Just do that kind of stuff, and it starts to hammer it up a bit, okay? And that works pretty well. Let's put just a touch of that on the edge of this, right there. Tap through. We'll go to a smaller brush and do some of the details of that in just a little bit here. But it's starting up, and I'm going to go a little bit more. I love that diarylite as I go into that center there. So I'm going to go a little bit lighter, a little bit more. I'm modeling it here, looking at my color so it's not particularly perfect. And I'm just going to drop a lighter mark of that right up that line so that this is the, and I'll tap the edges of it to model that out a bit into the, so, and you know, you're going to get other beautiful, like look at the calligraphy, you can almost see like a brush stroke right there. So take that yellow oxide, just a touch of this, which will green it slightly. As you head to those blues in these siennas, that'll green it slightly, and you can start putting in strokes like that. Just nice, beautiful calligraphy strokes. If you see something in there like that and you like it, go ahead and add it, you know, as a nice kind of a calligraphy stroke. Maybe pull some of this out like that, down the sides here like that. Model this just a bit here on the edges. We'll do some more. Now, what's happening in here, which is absolutely, you can step back and look at it. You can see I'm getting there. Still need more light. Still need a little bit more stuff. But my paint, my underlying paint here, now it's been 40 minutes. We've been working on this, and the underlying paint is starting to get a little tacky. That's when it gets really good. If your paint gets a little sticky, that's what I really like, because I can lay colors off beautifully. They grab just a bit. See how it grabs just a bit? And a lot of times, guys, since I'm a acrylic painter, I paint for that. I paint waiting for that, manipulating color around, waiting for this just to get a little bit grabby. And it's just a touch sticky, and it just makes such great movement if you wanted to get movement into your brass here. This will create great movement there into that brass. Here, let's pull across just a bit here. So I'll use different types of calligraphy to really get that brass out here. Let's build. Now, the center of this could really be a little bit more. So I'm going to build this, or the light area of this, a little bit more, so that the brass has an equal chance to get some interest for it, you know, in dealing with those peonies, which are really going to kind of overtake everything pretty quickly here. So I'm going to increase that just a bit, the base of the light, where that light's going to be, and then I'm going to hit that light right up in here a little bit more. Okay, and take a look at that. That's better. Model down so it's and just soften one or two of the edges, or push that, we go back and push that calligraphy stroke back up through there, which is nice. I kind of like that on that piece. And it kind of comes across to there a bit. Here, let's just add a bit more of that light down that edge there. Here, just like that. And yeah, and I'm gonna add some extender to some of this. It's starting to get really sticky down here, so I'll add a little extender. You could add open medium, but open medium already is sticky, and I don't want it to get any more grab, so I'll just thin it with a little bit of extender there. And let's work just a touch of that. So you get all of these tones in here is what really makes your brass pretty. You start to get some of these tones. You can look at other things like little hits, light hits and stuff that are pulling across. And whether or not you leave those on your brass, that's up to you. You're the artist, and you have to determine just, does that take away from the brass a little bit, or does it add quite a bit to the brass? So that's up to you to determine here. So let's just build the light here just a bit more. Here. There we go. And then let's take some of this. We'll add a little open medium. We'll come down. We'll grab some of our blues and stuff down here. Let's just add just a touch more. Those table colors right in there. Now, I'm losing my downward ellipse. Boy, when I get paint on like this, I do love doing this. Just pushing through and getting the movement of the brass itself there for the table. But in doing that, I just lost that little brush marking that I did there that I liked, so I'll just put it back. That's all you do. You'll have that happen all the time. At least it does to me. It happens all the time. Put it on and go, wow, I like it. And then I've taken it out. No, I just go put it back. I don't worry about that stuff. I used to, I used to get like all upset at myself and stuff. And I was just like, oh no. But that's how you explore new looks and stuff to brass and paint something, get new looks to these metals and stuff, is by exploring some of this stuff and trying some things. Let's just put a little bit of that shadow there. That's right before that reflected light. Let's build up that reflected light side here just a bit more. Right in here. We'll push a little bit more light. Not quite that light, Dave. Let's go gray that down just a bit. A little bit of our blue. That blue, that sapphire, is kind of important because that's what's in the base of the table. And so you can pick up that color, brass picks up that color there. And so you can kind of see that works. Now there's a little bit of a shine I don't have over there. Let's go with some burnt sienna and some yellow. Maybe a bit of our red, just a touch. And let's just grab some of that. Just grab some of that over there. We'll pinch wipe our brush, grab some of our dark, and paint into that a bit. There. There's a bit more burnt sienna blue. Let's thin this shadow color. Thin it. I'm going to thin it so it has not too much power, and pull down through that to get that shape right there. Right in there. That's pretty good. It has a light little brass edge there. Some of the details, it all depends on, when you're painting brass or you're painting something like this, how much of the details are you going to put in there? That's, how much of the actual color movements are you going to put in? That's up to you. That's your call, as the artist, but make sure you read, kind of see if you can pick out. Now, I love that little touch of burnt sienna back up in here. So I want to make sure I see that a bit. Pull that into this a bit. See, that just makes pretty color in there. Let's take some of this shadow very lightly. So I don't want to take out all of that. but push some of that other color right down in there. So now as I'm painting this, you can really see the life of the brass coming to life as you just repeating some of these colors and using and not actually, let me restate that so I don't confuse. It's not actually repeating the colors. It's like if it's a burnt sienna, well, it's burnt sienna with a little blue, burnt sienna with a little yellow. I'm restating colors, but they're not exactly the same every single time. I'm always changing the colors a bit. And that's what's so important about what we do, what we should do as artists. Now, what really makes the metal shine is these shadows. So you really got to make sure you get like your value 2 shadows down into some of that brass. So some of these real darks, the blue and burnt sienna, you've got to have some real focused darks right down in here. That's going to cause the rest of the metal. See how the metal shines now, see? So the darks are really important, little spots of them to get that, to make that brass shine. Maybe a bit more burnt sienna into that, and let's just drop some of that right down in here. Lift up and model that across a bit right in there. And let's take some of that, fix that lower foot ellipse there. Some of you are probably saying, Dave, you need to fix that. Yeah, I know. Let's get a bit of the light right in there. Right in there. Maybe, it has a good pull down feeling to it in the reference photo, so we'll do that. Now, there's a wider bit of the foot, and I do like that. So let's try to do it with our super huge brush here, Dave. Yeah, push a bit of that lighter. It could go a bit more burnt sienna and light, a bit more, slightly more orange here. The paint is nice and sticky, and see how it lays off? Really nice for what that is there. Now, the light source gets expressed into that. So that light source has got to track right in here with that one, and so it's got to express right there. And we can push that in and out to give that sideways motion to that. And a little bit of that bluish color to the bottom here. Right there. There we go. And then a little bit of light right up in here. A little bit more light there, Dave. Right there. Yeah, I probably could use another dose of that. But, there's a lot of things we have to get in here yet. Let's, I love that Darulide and some of this burnt sienna, some of this color right here is a kind of a glowy little shadow color, but it's thin. I'm going to put it in my brush kind of thin. And let's just move through this just a bit here. Push that color in. Push that dark into that. So now you get all of that hammered look, working these colors. This is a nice intermediate color right between the shadow and the lights. That Darulide yellow is just so pretty in this kind of a application there. So you see that. Now, and it's glowing pretty good, compared to that one. I don't have, darn it, I just touched that in the water. That's a dangerous thing. We've been painting with a lot of extender. I dropped that brush right in the water. We've been painting with a lot of extenders and all that kind of stuff. If I go back up and touch that painting at all with any kind of water in the brush, it'll tear a hole in it. So that's, if I've made a mistake like that, what I'll do is I'll come back and just rinse out the brush with a bit of the extender. And by doing so, you won't get a hole in your painting, because there's nothing more annoying than that kind of eating through. I'm going to take just a bit of this orangey kind of color, just touch a bit of that through. It's such a pretty, that burnt sienna, so pretty. And we still got to add the colors of the roses and stuff in there. I want to take that a color here, that maybe a bit of the blue into this, so it cools it down just a touch, and a bit of light, And I want to thin this way out with extender. Don't want to use the open beam extender because I don't want to have too much impact with this in the painting. Kind of thin. And I'm just going to pull across here to give that impression. Very light, very light. This is where the fusion brush just shines. You can just set it right across like this and push some of this in there, and it doesn't disturb everything that's underneath. To push some of that lower light that you see right in there. And we can add just a bit more of a mark right in there. There'll be a bit of a draggy bit of it right across there. Here. There we go. Leave some of that calligraphy. That's kind of important there, to leave that calligraphy. And after you do something like that, you can't forget to breathe, boy. There we go. And yeah, that worked out kind of good. We'll use a bit of that up here. So you can get a really, now, you know, if you want to smooth it more out like the other brass and stuff, you can. You know, add a few more little touches and hits to it. Like there's a little touch or hit to it there. It just increases its interest and stuff. But before I get too wild with that, I'm going to paint those peonies. Now, I might just come in here, though. Take a bit of the dialite in that yellow here. And go right up towards my 9 here. And put a, let's go in even a little lighter. Just model this and put a better shine light on that right there. Right up here. Right up the top there. Like that. And see, it just causes the metal to shine a little bit more. It's a little wider right out here, so I'll go to the chisel and just a touch to the flat and just pull down here. And then just grab my brush side to side here. Pull across here. Take that aside. Maybe just a touch of that below the apex here, so just a touch right down there. That just makes it look kind of pretty here. And I could go up. So as I go up, I really like that dialite into some of these other yellows here. And I could go up here just a bit more as far as lightness. Coming across that right there. But use small brush marks like this, it keeps that kind of hammered look to it there, which is kind of neat. Here we go. And let's restate that. I do like that motion of that one right there. It is kind of a neat motion there with that. There, like that. Kind of goes through. A few other little marks if you wanted to add that, you know, and stuff. That's all up to you. I think it's pretty good for this particular painting. I can come back after the peonies and decide if I, you know, how much more and stuff that I wanted to add to it, or do you want to give more of the, like there's that yellow burnt sienna, tiny bit of the blue, kind of, let's just drop it right down over here, mid-tone here, that is right in there. I can push that in a bit here, right in there, gets just a bit more, blur the edges of that, and there, so you see some of that, maybe a bit of that, just light pressure of your brush, you don't, it just puts on almost like a little glaze of it, just a bit of it in there, so it you see a bit of that without having it overpower it. That's the big thing. You don't want to overpower it. Here's some other little colors of it there. Let's restate that bit of that. Could have a bit more of my burnt sienna blue. Thin it. Now you want these shadows to be very thin so that they don't have as much impact. here, because you're real close to where we want to be. So we want that now. And boom. Maybe before I even get done here, I'm going to take, and I usually wait, but I am a professional, so, but I usually wait. The good thing is wait to see how you do your peonies. But I'm going to just put some of this pink right in there, because the metals pick up those colors. So I'll just put up some of that color right there, maybe a little focus for a shine, which you would actually put a little closer towards the center, because that's where the light would be coming from. So you can push just a bit of that right down there. Now I was thinking about maybe like Couchoir, putting something kind of pink right down there. Now usually, you know guys, I wait until I'm completely done, but you know, I've done this so many times, so I'll just go ahead and do it. So, but usually like Couchoir puts something right down there. Now I can't forget to do that, so we'll push a little bit of light right up closer to that light source is where we'll push the light, just a touch. So both of your reds, nice, warm, and cool. We can adjust it, but that, you can see what that does. Sometimes it just makes that metal really pretty. You start to see that metal there, you know. And then that means we should probably push. It has to come forward of it a bit. We're going to put an idea of a peony and stuff right in there. And doesn't that look like a peony? Some of you probably think I lost my mind, but no, we can do that. We can get a little yellows. Let's get a little bit of burnt siennas, and some of those we'll push a little bit of the dark in there. This is what I love about, you know, I love the French Impressionists, how they would come about and painting in this now. I used to be such a tight painter and couldn't get loose, and so I started studying a lot of the Impressionism, and that really helped me out a lot. So we'll drop one right in there. We'll make some lighter petals, maybe even up towards these, towards the lights and the yellows there. We'll drop a few lights in there. Let some of that just come around. And yeah, we'll maybe a little petal. I love that these coral peonies in that. They're not the shape of normal peonies that I've painted over the years. They're a little different, and I really like them. I love the little touches of light petals out here at the ends and stuff. So now that's a little, it's a little tight for me. In other words, I got it a little too perfect into a ball, so I'll change that. But I'm going to go up and paint this one up here first, so that I have a good, you know, a nice idea how I'm going to approach it. So I don't want this one controlled by that one, in other words, okay? So I just put some color in there so I know. Let's put some yellows back in here. Boom. Let's touch a little bit of our burnt siennas. This centers of these things are really mottled up, so we won't mix our colors too much on the palette. So we'll get these all what we call mottled through like that, okay? Let's touch a little bit of that green, maybe green, a nice yellow green here, some of the Hansa and the pine. Put some yellow green in there, which is a pretty color here. We can touch some of that right back down in there. Boy, that loosened that up a little bit more here. So I liked a bit of that in there. Okay, let's get some of the reds and red violets and some of the burnt sienna, which helps tone it down a bit. And you'll see here some of that movement that goes in and out of there, those colors. So I'm just going to paint that movement in and out. Now, this is also where I like to really start adding a lot of the open medium, which kind of helps your colors transparent and slide over the surface. And I showed in the live class that we did with the members, I showed taking a gel extender, making an extender and gelling it with, this is the thickener. This is acrylic thickener, which we have. And it just makes a fantastic center on the coral peonies. If I was doing a painting all by itself, I would definitely do it that way. But I'm going to be using this in conjunction with this particular painting, so I'm going to be controlling my calligraphy of my brush a little bit here. So I'm not sure I want to add that much to it, so I won't use the thickener into the gel with this. We'll go this direction. Let's see, that's a little bit warmer, so let's get some of Darulite, the red pinks here, the lights. Don't mix it up too well. The light part of the peony is going to come right down here to this side, okay? So let's take a stroke. Now see how it's not mixed up? I can touch over here towards the pink and push more of a pink side to it right there like that, okay? I can come up over here towards the light. Let's get some of this mottled in, some of this thicker medium here. And we can come out here and we can stroke in some lighter reaching outside petals here like that. Okay, that's kind of pretty. And see, it's all kind of mottled up. It's not mixed. This is where it's going to make your peony really pretty, is if you can not and get lots of medium in there. Okay, don't over mix your colors. Let the colors come off in little streaks. That's the wonderful part of the painting. Now let's take a bit of our reds, a little more red violet, even a little burnt sienna. So nice and mottled, and let's just pull right down in here and pull up, maybe push and pull that a little bit so that color, I don't want to do it too much, you'll mix it. And so I just get a nice kind of really deep shadow in there. Let's add some yellow right in there to it. See how pretty that is. It's just, I'm using just a little light feather stroke with this fusion, and you can see everything is like really wet. And your peonies and stuff will be completely different. You know, I could never really copy that one again. It's going to be different depending upon, you know, how you model your colors and everything. But we want light coming here, shadow starting to come here, and softness going to the back. That's what we're looking for, okay? That's the goal. Okay, so let's take a little more light. We'll just kind of edge it, just kind of tap it into the edge, this edge of the brush right here. And this is going to allow me to kind of draw using, it's almost like that petal edging technique I use on the roses. Allow me to push through and push in some, and I can pick up some of the paint here on the edge and just kind of, let's build that a bit more. Now, it just like we did on the brass, if it starts to get too much where you don't have, you know, as much control, starts to you start to lose control of it, you got to let it tack up a bit. You got to let the acrylic start to tack. But that makes a nice little, we're kind of catching that little look right in there. That's what I'm looking for. So we'll drop some of that right in here. Little edge here like that. That's kind of pretty. Maybe an edge or two of some smaller petals right in here. Just kind of using the corner and just kind of drawing and pushing them around here like that. Okay. Maybe a bit more of this pink right up here. Build that side a bit here as it goes up. Don't want to lose all that center though. I love that about the coral peonies, that big open center. You know, most peonies don't have that kind of open center. Here, let's get a little yellow. Darulite with those quinacridones and stuff is so pretty. Let's get just a bit of that in there. And a bit of that burnt sienna green. Pretty color. See, it grays it down in through here. Lets you build that contrast down into the center that we want to kind of have there. And it's also picking up the tones here on that side there, which I like. So let's just pick up some of that tone and push it here to this shadow side. See, that does a nice job pushing the shadow into the peony on that side. And we'll use some softer, not quite as light, some softer pinks here to just suggest some petals. maybe a couple, like you'd see in the back out there on that one, maybe a couple of slightly lighter ones here in the back that are reaching out and maybe hitting the through light that's coming through in the painting there. But we can do them softer by just pulling through here a bit and just look for the movement really more than anything else. Let's put a bit more light right up on this edge of this one. There, like that. That's kind of pretty. A little edge, just a little corner of the brush. There. Just a little bit of that movement. Then maybe one that cuts across here a bit. There, like that. A little different look to these. Which is what we're artists, we're constantly exploring some of the different looks. How you get some of these different looks, Trying things. There, just curve that petal just a bit. I want to get some more Darulite and burnt sienna into the center of that. So let's come over here to a clean spot. Little Darulite, burnt sienna. Move that around a bit into that center. And maybe even a little more burnt sienna, maybe even a touch of red, violet, and blue so it goes real dark. Just a bit. Move that through. There, keeping that some of that shadow side there. That looks pretty. I do like that. I don't like that light one kind of sticking up right there, but I do like the lightness of it. So maybe just a touch more light, because it really helps you with your light source. Maybe just a touch more light, like right in there, like that. There. Now let's just take, so we can preserve that bowl, a little bit of shadow and lift off. I do this a lot. I'll lift off into that and, and restate that shadow that's right down there. Now, that's not too bad. I don't like, though, quite that V, so I'm going to remove a little bit of that V by pulling this petal. We'll put a bit of light right on the edge, and we'll set that other one right up on top of that one. Here we go. Just a bit more light. Don't breathe. Bit more light right on that edge there. Just boom. So that sets that. That's kind of pretty. You could do more back in there if you want, more of the shape. We could just take a softer pink and maybe do a couple of petals here like this, more of a petal shape if you want to get, more of this back kind of shape to the back petals. That's up to you. That's your signature, how much you're going to do. I think I'm just going to kind of leave it, maybe soften that one back just a bit. Sometimes I just love it when you push your finger and it does exactly what you want it to do. Doesn't always happen. So, yeah, that one little spot though is a bit there, just slightly softer. Yeah, and a little more Darulite. I love that Darulite burnt sienna. This is such a pretty color with just a touch of that quinacridone. It's such a pretty modelly color. Let's push that right back in here a bit more. Open up that kind of coral color. Okay, so that's that one. Now, I don't normally, paint like this, go 1, 1, 1, 1 all the way through. I usually work the whole thing, but for some of you that, one of the things one of the comments that I got was, to be able to concentrate, focus down on one item at a time so it's easier. So if you only got 15 minutes to look at painting brass or painting a peony, you can go right to that part of the video and see that. Normally I work all the way through, some of the what you see in the peony. Let's put a bit of this darker tone from that right over there. That'll work. It'll reflect some of that peony down. Let's go up to this one. This is a fun one. Let's put some open medium. We'll get back into our greens and these dirylides right in here. Let's push some, some of that just model around there. Let's just model, because you see a lot of the septals and stuff into the center of this particular peony this way, which is, let's put a little green burnt sienna just on the corner of the brush, right down there into the center here, right down like that, so you get some of that movement. A little bit more of the yellow, maybe even a little bit of the tiny bit of white, tiny bit of Hansa, which will help opaque it a bit to get some of that movement. It might be too much, but we'll see. It's really nice. It's picking up some of those tones of the, the brass. And if something like that happens to you, thin it out. This is what I love about painting brass and other metals. Thin it out and maybe just carry a little bit of that into the brass, so you pick some of it back up. That makes it so pretty when you start thinking about those carrying of those colors and stuff here. Okay, let's get this, model that back through here a bit, maybe a bit more burnt sienna. So I'm just kind of just painting for movement right back up in here right now, setting some of the movement of that peony that I want in there. A little bit more of that yellow-green right down through there. That's good. Let's take right into here, and we'll use some open medium this time, so we have a little bit of power, a little bit more than that, and push some color on so we can paint into our lights into some of those colors that we see there. A bit of yellow. The yellow oxide's very opaque, so I use just a little bit of it, but we'll add some of that into there, okay? And then we'll lighten up. Let's go right up into the front, right where our light source is going to be, right up here. Push in and pull through down some of the slightly curved and some of the movement of that front bowl of that peony there. Some of the petals. Now they're a little bit straighter than what I did, but that's okay. This one's mine. Yeah, there we go. And then we'll take, see how it's modeled here? See how it streaks through with that, so it's not an opaque white. It's a very soft light. Let's push some of that right out there, like that. Maybe a bit more of a light streak right out here in the front, so it definitely comes up on top of that one there. A little bit of movement with some of that pink right through there. That's pretty. And sometimes I'll just take it off, just boom like this, and create that translucent edge of that, which I like. There. And let's grab some open medium, some of this. Let's get some reds, a little greens, a little nice, almost a little cool, a little green. Model this all up here. Put quite a bit of open medium in it, or thin it out with some extender. You can add both. And let's push some bit of the shadow down in here, which is it's on the light side, but it's also the shadow going down below there. And we'll just grab some of this right into some of this, model this is to a nice gray color here, and pull a bit of so you get the feeling of the petals there. Okay, I want to put we'll go more pink, a little more white, a little more opaque here. Okay, right up into the front here. Boom, just pull the stroke, and then I'm going to tap my brush into a little of that medium tone and paint out just a bit, leaving just a bit of that light. So it's going to be a light petal there. Sometimes I'll pull out here, just giving some of the movement here to that petal. And I want little hits of the light back here, little ideas of the petals here. We'll tone it down just a bit, not quite so light, a little bit of grays into it. Start building the other side of this peony here. let's put, since the light's coming through here, it'll be different than that one. So the light has got to pull through. The light's coming up through and everything through here. So we really need to get that light right up here, because that's where it's coming through on that peony. Let's get some of that light right up on the edge of a petal here. Right there, pulling down and through into that one. You can add, now that you get some of the movement, you can just use a little chisel of your brush and add another petal in there or a different movement. All kinds of things you can do. Let's add just a touch here. The light. There we go. Little marks, little movements. Let's get some of that. I like those little burnt sienna kind of sepals sitting in there. Into that center, just some of that nice movement like that sitting in there. Just does some there. Let's take a bit of that yellow and green and just softly pull through some of that. And then let's build just a little bit more gray, not as light as the front of the peony. So it's a little more gray color, touch lighter. Right here onto the side, here. Push some of that out. Sometimes you can just get it by pushing into that direction. You can set the shape of that one pretty nice. Let's thin. I'm going to thin this so it has, I'm going to use the light, but it has no power because I'm thinning it, which means the shadow I have on here can help soften it out, and we'll push some soft. So anytime I'm painting in onto the shadow side of something, I generally use more shadowy tones. But I do like the, the brass and that kind of tone there. That brass is kind of picking up some of that tone. Here. And we'll just pull through a couple of little lights here. There, because that's where the light is coming through. Now let's take some burnt sienna, some green, and some red violet. This will be a nice cool, darker cool color. We'll do some negative painting right in here. Now these shadows, this is nice cool. This would be, we'll pop these more into greens and stuff like that, but these shadows are going to be very important here. We'll put some leaves out over the edge of our brass, because you can see it immediately makes everything kind of shine a little bit more, and which is what we want. Let's take some of that, maybe a bit more green to that, right up back here. Here, we have to decide, do I want to put in any more just casual, thin this out a bit here, just casual touches of the peony colors, or do I want any more like peonies back down in here? I could have a bit more color modulation back in here, kind of like what I did in this one. I could have a bit more, pulling that back up, those colors, shadows, and then work the other colors back down into that, just to help see that bowl of that one again. And even with some pinks and stuff, picking up some of those other colors from the other one there. Probably put just a nice light petal there right in front here, but don't get rid of the shadow we just put on. Leave some of that here. We'll push just that little edge there. That's pretty nice. Maybe a touch more right up in the front. I like to, the light sources are on the top, so you do want to give a nice feeling of the nice round bowl and light petals right up into the front here for that one. Okay, that's just a bit too perfect right there. sometimes I just play with them right here until I get the look that I like. Because I don't always like to copy what I see in the other paint. That's better. I always like to copy what I see in the other peonies and stuff here. You know, so, all right, let's go. Moving on, moving forward. I'll step back and take a look at it. That's coming. Now we could really, let's go back and let's manipulate our background a little bit more here. Let's go back to my, there it is, my 1-inch brush here. We'll use a little extender. Let's just take some of these colors, some of the greens, burnt siennas. We started out with the medium beige and some blue. So some of the colors of the composition we're using in here. And that's really kind of a pretty one there. Might be too dark and for that area. Need that color, but it might be too dark. Let's just work a little light. This is what I like to start doing. And this is I'll start manipulating more paint here and just painting into it. Sometimes I'll paint right into the edge of the peony and blur it and stuff like that. But, you know, I start just to move paint around. And sometimes I'll blur into the edge of like that handle there. You know, and sometimes you get, you know, just like grab some of these pinks and stuff like that. And this is what the Impressionists would do. And just incorporate some of those pinks right there. And it's pretty. Just, you know, I used to always just paint my backgrounds just one way. Now look at that beautiful pink color coming in here. And you see a bit of it there. Paint right up. We'll just lose the edge of this a bit. And then don't let it be quite so perfect. Just lose the edge a bit. Sometimes I'll take, like push a light through, pull through so it doesn't look like you painted around. Here. That little bit of pink going up there is kind of pretty right in there. And we'll grab a little more light. Let's even put a bit of that warmer yellow into that. So you can see you model in now all these colors. See, that's kind of pretty in there. We'll drag some of it down that side. Let that go in there. That's pretty colors with that. And back into some of our beige and blue here. And we'll just let some of that beige and blue come in there too. Here, right out over here. And you can see this time, see how the heavier paint. But I'll let some of that other tone just kind of show through there. Or pull it up and through and blur it up and out. Or you can drag it through. You know, some of the French Impressionists would drag like this and let some of that initial, even all the way down to their canvas, and let some of that, you know, canvas and stuff show through, which gives you a, you know, pull it back off. And it gives you a different, you know, a different look. That's up to you. Or you can put it in with a little bit lighter paint. So you don't have that pull, but sometimes having that pull, that different texture kind of feeling of it is quite nice. So we'll come through here. Let's go back to some burnt sienna and green here. Maybe a touch of blue here. Maybe a bit of red violet. I just like them all. Not completely too mixed up, but you know, I like some of those colors. Yeah, I think maybe I'll put maybe another peony right here. Maybe one just kind of softer one right back up there. And I'll do a couple of precise leaves, but most of the, I'm just going to do, I think I'll just do impressionistic leaves here off to the sides and stuff. Yeah, that's, we'll come back up over here, a little blue, beige here. And see, just push those colors, and by manipulating all these colors, you just get these beautiful backgrounds. You know, these beautiful backgrounds. Now, don't forget some of that pink up there is really pretty here. Let's push a bit of that through. That's a bit much, but We can take some of that out here, and we got to get some of our darks up there too, because that's the other side. So mottled blues and burnt siennas and stuff. Get that shadow, but look at that little bit of the pinks coming through there. That's pretty. Some of those colors. Like that. And you see, just building. And that's the fun part here. And see, this is really going to help that, well, if I stay out of the brass, this will really help the brass lighten up. But you got to stay out of the brass. Don't paint into the brass there, Dave. And push that through. Let a little bit of light come back up there, but let that come through. I love working with the big brush. You know, so, Sargent was so right. The big brush just does so much, you know, for your painting. And let's put in that darker part of the table line there. There, like that. That's kind of nice. We'll come forward here into our lights. A little more beige. Get a little bit of blue. Push some of that on there. There we go. And then just take some of that color right up into here to harmonize your background with your foreground there, your table line there. Just harmonizes it a bit. Try to have the table line halfway straight here. There we go. Let's put a bit of that here. Coming forward there. That's kind of pretty. And yeah, we'll go a little bit lighter, a little bit warmer. As I go lighter, I like to go warmer. A little bit of beige maybe right up here. So now we'll get, and this is the beautiful spot up in here as you walk some of these warmer colors across here. You might touch into a few of your brass colors and drop some of your brass down onto your table too. That is another thing that you can do here. Just drop that around there. That's why I like working in layers here, and you can make small adjustments, and you know, and I'll look at it there. You just make small adjustments to it, and you know, you don't have to have the same color or anything. Let's put that light in here. Pull that across a bit. That's the light hitting the table, and it should, you know, a lot of people are always one of this problems that a lot of beginning painters have, and I'm going to watch for this because I did it for a long time too, is we put the light on there, then we go dark real fast. You may have light diminishing across some object, but it goes light to dark too fast. That light doesn't stop like that unless it's a spotlight. It's got to walk across a bit of the painting. So walk it across a bit of the painting there. Okay, so we're going to walk this across a bit of the painting here, just like that. Doesn't just, you know, come one area and stop. Let's get a bit more light and hit that area right there. Just take it out a bit. It just makes it so pretty like that. And you can put a little bit of, you can even see the through light up there. So you can take a bit of that warm through light if you want. Let's just add a little open medium or extender. Work that in right up here so you see a bit of that light, that same kind of tonal warm value. Just not as much, but a bit of it coming through up there. You can touch a little softer bit of it over here to this side. But most of the light comes through right up there. That's what happens. That's the through light. And the chiaroscuro of the painting, what I told you at the very beginning, is the shadow side of an object is going to go against the light side of the background, and the light side of an object is going to go against the shadow. And that was a philosophy of painting and still is today. So I'm using it. So we'll push that right in there like that. Okay, and yeah, let's that worked pretty well. Let's go back down to a slightly smaller brush here and work these edges a bit more here. And you have to start to decide, now you get some of that light on and stuff, and it's just how much you're going to, make your brass shine, how much highlight and stuff you're going to be putting on there. Let's take, see, we got this pink one here. Let's quickly go through and state some of this pink one again. Push some of that pretty color. Let some of these lost edges and stuff, though, happen on it. Because it's going to be it's there just to carry color and a little bit of interest. We don't want to do too much here to it. Just kind of casually state it, just kind of, there's a bowl, just kind of casually state it. Don't get wrapped up too much into the painting of it here. And let's go with the lighter pink, maybe some of these yellows, and model that into it here. And like that, just push that right up by the edge here. There, that's kind of a pretty little, see, you get those model colors, and if you don't stroke them too much, you can make some really pretty, like little petals and stuff like that. If you don't stroke it too much, if you stroke it too much, it all becomes one. And then you'll lose the beauty of the petal. So you don't want to do that too much. There. Let's put an angled one in there. Right across the front here. Right with that light source. Maybe another little one right here. A little more paint. As I start to put some of those on, I'll paint just a bit more paint here. Here. There we go. Just like that. Let's just soft push some of that out there. Now you will look for some of your green, burnt sienna, kind of a bit of blue and violet here. Make a nice shadow color. You're dirty though. I love the burnt sienna though in it, so it doesn't get too cold. And you can use that as a little bit of a cast, or when it comes right along the edge of the flower, there we call that the contact shadow. So you would have a little contact shadow here, right up into the very front here. Just blur that out just a bit. And then more of the cast shadow would be right back through here, and it would be quite far because of where that is right there. It'll come back a bit right in there. That would be the cast shadow. Let's use some of that right in here. Oh, it's kind of a pretty color with that brass. Push that back right up, let it dye up into that wall. Blur the edge of it here. Shadows, when I used to do a lot of shadow studies and stuff, and you'd see shadows have different values of it, but it's darker up along, right up by the contact shadow, which is right up to the front. That's a little bit reddish, but I like it. We'll put a bit of the green right in here when we come up. And this is really kind of hard. You can go to a smaller brush, but I'm just going to use the chisel here. And generally I'll paint it in, and if I make a mistake, I'll use the other colors to, and you want to keep that nice rounding kind of ellipse to it there. Let's just drop that back, blur that out a bit, right there. Blur that just a bit. That's your contact shadow up in front. And in actuality, in if you're painting a still life or floral still life, like this is the contact shadow is the darkest shadow on the painting, but that's fine. That works. We're not painting realism today. We're painting more impressionism and having some fun with it. Here, let that handle just go right back down in there. That looks pretty good. And let's put another kind of a white gray one back here. Boy, that doesn't show up too much. It's kind of like, why'd you just do that? No, we'll put that in there to work that color in there. Let's grab a bit of our burnt siennas, some darks, and work that in, model that around a bit. And we're just going to do a very quick 30-second peony here, because it's not important. This job here is just to round up the bouquet, carry a little bit of interest, but here, we'll just do that. Let's put a little bit of our warmer yellows and some pinks and stuff up here into the front. But you can see as I start to paint this, it's not going to need to go too light. It's starting to fit in. It's not going to go nearly as light as that here. Hopefully, we'll get some burnt sienna, some yellows, bit of the greens too. I like with that. Makes nice grays. You could use the blues here. There, like that. And I start slowly lightening it until I get it into position that I like here. There, those just quick little petals there. Here. Put some of those in. And maybe some, you got to use some pretty colors on it. So a bit more yellow and pink here. Even though it's way back there, it's got to be pretty. So you got to get some of those pretty colors in there. That'd be nice. And let's get those coral colors. Yellows, pinks, whites here. And softer. And a little bit more here. Let's take some yellows, maybe a little bit of violet there, and go right through to warm that shadow in there just a touch more. Felt a little too cold there. Watching to get up against the other one there. Let's go a little more, just a touch of dark light in there. That's going pretty. And different, I like to paint different things, try different things. That's the one thing is this, all my life, basically as painting is I've traveled around the world teaching, and my wife and I used to average 3 times around the world every year. And we've flown millions of miles, my teaching around the world. And I paint a painting like this, and then I go to Korea and Taiwan, Australia, Singapore, out through Europe and everything, teaching it. And you end up painting the same thing like 9 times, and it got real boring. I love this, where I just show you guys painting it. You get to watch me create, and and tomorrow I'll do something different. And I just love that. That's the creative process that I love. That's not too bad there for that one sitting back there. Maybe a couple of loose petals over here that's just kind of in the back there. I'm going to paint these coral peonies though, and put them in a composition by themselves and paint more character to them. In other words, even more interest, because I like them. But you can't really paint too much more interest into these. They'll compete and take away so much from the brass. So you got to kind of, pick up, decide what you want to do. Let's take a little green, a little burnt sienna here. And the peony leaves on these coral ones are actually kind of skinny and long. So let's just give an impression or two of a few of them coming out here, like that. And we'll keep them kind of dark. We don't need to do anything wild and crazy with them here. Don't need to, in other words, paint a whole bunch of values on them. We're probably going to put some right up in here, but don't need to worry too much about that. Here like that. We'll grab that and take a look at, maybe a little bit more and stuff going right down there into the center here. But we'll step back here for a second, take a look. And I think that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to come with up here towards the front. We'll put in a couple of brighter kind of leaves right up here, maybe one of them or two of them here that go across the front. We're just going to be very casual with those, just maybe a little lighter green and some yellow, a bit of white to it here, just to just marks. I always liked what there years and years and years ago, beautiful oil artist had a show on PBS I used to watch on all the time, Helen Van Wyck, and just loved it. And she always says, get playful with your leaves, which is very true. Put a little bit of blue into that there too. And she'd always say, get playful with your leaves. They basically set the stage for your flowers and stuff. And we'll make a little lighter green here. So a little bit more to this one right out here into the front, but the rest of them I'll just get a little playful here. And most of it just sit as color. That's not too bad. And we could pull one down, a little bud or something right here, because it feels just like too round. So maybe into the back there. Take a little white and a green and pink and stuff here. We'll do more of a peony bud hanging down here. So we'll put some green here onto the sides, like the leaves. Let's put some reds and yellows. Just a stroke or two to help round that up. Push that color and let's get some yellow over there. There we go. Peony buds and stuff, when you're painting those, I try to be very understated with them. In other words, don't do too much to them. Pull a bit of the light color with some green in it. Tone it down a bit. Here, just kind of push that around. Here, not too much going on with it. That front is just a touch, I think, too light. Put a little more green and gray color in it. And I'll just blur it kind of together there. Love using all that paint. I can just kind of blur it all together and that works pretty nice. Let's just put a little green leaf right out over here. One that just kind of disappears out over. And maybe a darker burnt sienna green. Here maybe a touch of red violet, which really darkens it up. Just the idea of a little stem back there. Little shadow there on the green. This is the more of the impressionistic where I'll just let those edges just kind of disappear, and I love that kind of stuff. So I'll just let some of the edges and stuff disappear. Put a little bit of this dark around here. Pull into that a bit. And it just, it just adds a little bit more color movement, a little bit more stuff going on. Just a bit more interest and stuff. Just, do the little brush dance, I always call that. Let's go a little bit lighter green up there too, just for some interest. Just stuff going on. You could turn one of those over there into that side into a peony, but I think that's fine now. So we've evaluated, I sat back and evaluated that. I think I will raise my brass up just a touch more. I'll be a little careful with that. So I'm just going to clean up my area here a bit. I'm going to be a little bit more specific with, I'm going to grab some of my yellows. And we haven't used Hansa into that brass yet, so we might use a little of that. There's some yellow oxide, some of my whites, some of my burnt siennas and reds here, a touch of my greens. Well, these are all beautiful mid-tone brass, a little different than what we did before. See, but it's a beautiful kind of a brass color. Let's see what some of that looks like right in there. And see, that'll just lighten it up a bit. I'll bring some of it farther forward. And it's an artist's choice. This is an artist's choice, whether or not you do something like this to lighten up some of your brass here. I'm going to put a bit more yellow right in there on the edge of that. I just think the brass here can afford to go a little bit lighter in conjunction with that other one there. Now, the burnt sienna and the green are also beautiful tones for, and the blue, a little bit of that blue. So they're all beautiful tones. Let's thin that just a bit and just work that tone right in here a bit. Just, I try not to paint out everything I did before, so I'm just working that edge of that tone with a few more colors here. The edge of this, so it softens into that a bit, see? Slightly different color than I've used before. That's the beautiful thing about painting, brass and stuff, is you work those different colors and tones. Let's lighten up, pulling down here, right up underneath that a bit more. There we go. How much you put into it is up to you. But I felt, because of the peonies, this brass could come up just a touch more. Change it up a bit. Brighten that yellow a bit in a few areas. That brings takes it away from the antique a bit. Then head to that burnt sienna, to that warmer burnt sienna. I love that burnt sienna and Darulite. A little bit of that warmer tone in there, right in there. And then we'll go over to that cooler tone, a little bit cooler, grayer, dirty tone. Tap around that a bit. Let's put a bit of that light right on that edge. Kind of walk that in a bit. Some of that dark. There we go. Yeah, that's all working pretty good, and those pinks work in there pretty nice. Now I do want to retain that bit of that light stroke here, because I do like that. So you just put it back on. See, I'll take it off and put it on and evaluate it and look at it. And that's what artists do. We take it off, put it on, evaluate it, look at it. When I was a decorative painter, there was so much. Now you can take a look at what that looks like. When I was a decorative painter, you'd put something on and you'd like, oh, don't touch it. Don't ever touch it again. You don't want to make a mistake, or you can never repeat that color again. But now I do this kind of stuff all the time. let's push just a bit more light right down here. Okay, let's get a bit of our table color right out in here. Blues and the grays here. And medium beige, a little lighter. That nice table color. Oh, there's the afternoon train. I just love the train sounds here. I just like trains. And so now I could go just, well, half a value lighter. Just a bit of that table. See, and this is the color of that table there now showing up on there. See what that does? And you don't want to go up past the apex, past that half point. So you would come right about into here. And that's the reflection of that table up into the metal there. Just like that, see? And you can put a little touch of it here and there on the sides, just a little bit. Maybe I'll push a little bit right into here before it goes into that pink of the rose there. But that helps a lot, see? And now that I know exactly what color it is now, I know how much I can put in, to there. You can put a touch up onto the edges, like right through there. And then I'm going to rinse that out real quick because I want to go back up and then put some extender in my brush and go back up to my warm light in the front. Maybe a little bit of Hansa here. We'll just lighten some of this, brighten it up a bit. And really kind of push that on here. Yeah, I know that's too light, too bright. I know that. Just wanted to show you what not to do. No. And it's like I say to you guys all the time, I tend to put on too much and then paint it back. That's how I like to. I like to go, oh, too much, and then we paint it back. And then I know, then I know. Soften the edge there a bit, like that. And just take some of that, just kind of paint into that a bit, soften that edge. See, I use different kinds of calligraphy to push that edge in there, so that shine is just kind of going, it's not just that shine goes in multiple brush strokes. That's the thing here. And let's take just a little bit of kind of a greenish yellow here. Pull through some of that just to get that tone. A little soft, a little blurry. It'll brighten the brass just a bit. Right over here as well. I'll just pull that down, kind of curving a little bit with it, so it puts a bit of a motion. Then we'll grab some of that softer shadow, paint, and tap into that edge. And small little strokes if you want to get that hammered look to it. And maybe a little bit more of a burnt sienna. I'd like to see just a little touch of, see, I like that little burnt sienna. Boom. Isn't that kind of pretty in there? So that burnt sienna might look pretty right over here too. Picking up that edge here with that. Maybe a touch of that up under here. Yeah, and that's kind of pretty. Kind of pretty with that. And you decide, do you want to, like that brash on that shadow side is dark down that one side. This one has a reflected light. So there's a light. Well, you can see it right back there. There's a light. He's lit up the back. The photographer lit up the back of that. But, for what I'm painting here, you wouldn't. So you might just want to darken down this side of the brass here. And see, once you completely understand and you do a lot of setups and a lot of light studies, which is what I do, and you go out there, you just make sure that you are adjusting your flowers and stuff here for your light source, which is not too hard to do. You can put things together. I watched one master painter, and he does a lot of photography, and he always takes his pictures from the same angle with the same light source, so he can combine everything together back in his studio all the time whenever he needs, because there are some times where you just, because of the season and or whatever, you can't get all of the stuff that you would want to set up and paint with. So you can't get it. It's out of season or something, and so that's a little dark, but boy, that is kind of pretty. I'm just going to pull some through like this and pull that edge a bit. Just soften and take some of that out. It's kind of a pretty little color. Let's darken back up here a bit as well, because it'll be in shadow now that that leaf and stuff is in there. That would be in shadow. Right, there you go. Now, I'm just going to put there's not really one there that you would see in that painting, but I do like to have a little bit of a bright little touch there that just kind of says brass. There like that. Just a little touch, not quite pure white. I'm not quite there. Just yellow and that mottled in. And it just kind of says brass. Right there. Maybe a bit right there. I think that's good. Yeah, so sorry, it's a little long, a little bit, a little bit, 2 hours or so. And hope you enjoyed that, okay? I hope you enjoyed the painting of it. So that's the metal, how you do that. All different kinds of metals that I do. Well, I usually have that painting back there, but my cowboy's back there right now. But the all kinds I do silvers, pewters, all kinds of other metals, and of course, we study the glass, so you can go look and see how to paint some glass. You can do a lot of these things really nice, and see, this painting is all done with acrylic, and it looks like oils. I was answering a question to somebody there. Yeah, the older acrylics that you had in the 70s and the 80s and all that kind of stuff are no good. Today's modern acrylics, as a matter of fact, as chemists, because I'm a chemist, building paint systems, we call them 2K acrylics. Acrylics that came after 2000 have really made huge advances as far as the chemistry and the layout. We can use exactly the same pigments, stuff that you use in oils. So you can make a painting out of acrylic that looks exactly like an oil. But the great thing is, everything in there, all the solvents that we use and everything we use is completely non-toxic. It doesn't hurt you at all. As a matter of fact, this is actually used in the food industry. This right here, directly. This is just one basic chemical here, and it's used in the food industry. It's in, if you ever drink a carbonated drink, it's the majority of carbonated drinks in the world have this in there as a flavor enhancer. It's a flavor enhancer, and it's used in everything. It's in hand lotions. It's everything. It's even in this, hand lotion cleaner that I have here. All kinds of, but they're safe, they're non-toxic, they're environmentally safe, they're green, they don't damage the planet, and they're really good. You have to make some adjustments, and you have some things to learn about using them, but you look at that, that looks like an oil painting, that looks like an oil painting of the brass, and we've done all with acrylics, and there's no smell here, and later on today, in about 15 minutes, actually, my grandchildren are coming over here, and they come over into the studio all the time, and there's never any problems with it. I never worry about it because it's all non-toxic. So there's a lot of good things. But then there's, I painted for oils with years too, and I understand people want to use those. Just use them safely. Be safe about what you do. Okay. So anyway, if you like it, please click that like button. Please drop a comment in there. All of that helps us. I'll put finals and all the reference photos and stuff. I put them all up. We have memberships on our channel. If you're thinking about that, we'd like that. We use the memberships to help us build more things going on here with YouTube. So we still do a lot of lessons and a lot of things on the YouTube. Our members get more videos. They have more videos. We just put up another big one here 2 days ago. And they also participate in our live classes. We do live classes. So there's 3 levels of memberships. And of course, as they go up in levels, you get more things. But we use that just to help us here because we've, since COVID came out, we produced over 220 videos, free videos, to help for everybody. And it does take a lot. It takes a lot. And we'd like to do some more. I'd like to hire an editor, another video editor and stuff. But yeah, if we get more memberships, we'll do that. So if you want to help us by supporting the channel, we would appreciate that as well. If not, I'll see you guys on the next video. Let me know in the comments what it is you want to see. And so there's your peonies and brass. We have a lot more to do. But that's kind of fun one. Okay, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.